Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Digital Breakthroughs podcast. It's been a minute since we've done this. My name is Matt Erickson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at National Positions. And today we are going to dive into Amazon. We may be doing a two-parter here. We'll just see how everything goes. But one of the great things about being the director here in a marketing agency is that I get to talk to different individuals from the social media team, from the Amazon team, from the SEO team. So I get to always have my fingers in all those different areas. And last week, I think actually a couple weeks ago, we had a new member join our team, but I only got to meet him last week. Probably been here longer than having you, Dave. A little longer than I thought.
Little bit longer.
A little bit longer. That's totally my bad. So, but we were having this conversation about Amazon, and I said, okay, pause. I want to talk about this, but I want to get it on the podcast because Dave just has a wealth of knowledge, and he's completely, I'll just say he's self-generated all of his knowledge. He's just a really sharp guy. So we're going to be talking about, in short, Amazon product listing basics that you do not want to overlook. So just because, I mean, we all saw once, we'll just say everything came down in 2019, 2020. We saw e-commerce going through the roof. And I know some people in the world are freaking out right now because, Amazon stock started to drop. It's like, well, what goes up that quickly is going to be coming down and leveling out. So with that, so I don't keep talking here. Everyone, this is Dave. And so Dave, can you just give us a quick, let everyone know who you are and what you do here at National Positions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Dave. I'm an Amazon account manager here at National Positions. And I kind of have a multifaceted skill set, but I do a lot of operations stuff here. And I also do, of course, listing optimizations and account strategy, PPC strategy, pretty much the works. And what we're talking about today, Amazon product listing basics to never overlook. Really, the basics are your bread and butter with Amazon. We're talking about images primarily. I would say that's probably the most fundamental one.
Okay.
You can see improvement in even your rankings just by improving your listing images. And one thing that I think trips people up is they may think they have a really good image, but it may not be technically good. And what I mean by that is,
let me pause you real quick there, because
Sure.
and because I want to make sure this is broad enough that maybe those who are thinking about going on Amazon,
Oh, sure.
they may understand some of the basics. So, and I'm just going to throw out, because Dave, you know way more than I know about this, but I'm going to throw out kind of the layman's side of it, and then I like you to give me back what what I'm missing. So when I think of an Amazon product listing, let's say, like, for example, I'm getting into painting lately, so obviously the colors that are showing up, is it true to life, is going to be very important. But listings that I've also seen, because I'm searching from companies in the UK and of course here in the States, they're obviously not all created equal, and we're going to be seeing where it's like, okay, I think a lot of people going on Amazon think, okay, do I have images? Period. Like, do I have, how many images? 6, 2? Okay, that's totally fine. So let's kind of go into that a little bit now, because if I'm going from that very basic standpoint of like, okay, you have images and you're good, which any book you read or ebook you read or blog you read is going to say have good images, but that doesn't really get into what that means. So tell me what I'm leaving out of that.
Yeah, sure. Having good images is, in terms of your Amazon listing, it's having the right amount, which is at least 5. Okay. And it's having high resolution images. That's one of the really big keys, is having that high resolution image. When you go on an Amazon listing, you'll notice a really good listing that has high resolution images. When you scroll over those images, a magnifying glass to sort of, magnify the image automatically pops up. And you want that to activate automatically on every single image you upload.
So that when you hover over, because I noticed all of a sudden it blows up on the screen and you're looking at a huge version of that. So, and you're probably going to go into this, but because I know I came from a design background, and we used to always say, if it's for web, it's at least 300 DPI, which is decibels per inch, or sorry, pixels per, whatever that is. I forgot, it's been so long, but you're talking bigger than that. You're not talking,
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with a large image. I always opt for, going for a larger image size. There's guidelines, but generally speaking, I'd say 3,000 by 3,000 is pretty
Wow.
safe.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, you're really not going to go wrong as long as it, because they're gonna compress it for like the initial viewing, and then when
Sure.
you scroll over, it activates the magnifying glass.
Got it.
Um, if you're really particular, you can definitely probably trim it a little bit, but you definitely want it to be, you know, big enough
Big.
to activate that magnifying glass.
Got
And
it.
we've seen, like we were talking about the other week, listing rankings improve just by uploading better images.
Can you give a quick example of that? I don't really want to pull up client data,
Yeah,
obviously,
no,
but
yeah,
just
absolutely. Yeah. Without going into names of clients or anything, I had a client who, um, it was a perfect example of it because it was the one listing that we hadn't done SEO or optimization on yet and copy updates,
and what
but
kind
it
of product
was
was it? Sorry, what kind of product was it?
is just car wipes.
Oh, car wipes.
So,
Okay.
incredibly generic product.
Mhm.
And changing the images made that listing go from not ranking pretty much, definitely not ranking in the top 50
Mhm.
results, to being on page one for car wipes as a search term, which is an incredibly
Yeah.
generic search term.
And for
uh,
those who aren't in the know, if you say top 50, I know we say like if you're on the second page of Google, you're dead. You just don't exist.
mhm.
What if you were in the top 50, where does that put you on the second, third? Like where does that put you?
So the first page is going to be about 20 results.
Okay.
So if you're in the top 20, you're page one. With Amazon, I'd say if you're past page two, you're dead.
Okay.
And obviously there's different search terms that are going to pull up your listing. So you don't have to worry too much if, you don't necessarily have to be page one for car wipes if you can find a long tail keyword and
For sure.
capitalize on it. Um, but in this case, it was pretty remarkable just making that one improvement, all of a sudden. And, they're up there with major players like Armor All and Miracle Wipes.
Nice.
And
That's
it's
see,
only going
and
to get better.
I think that's something maybe people have a trepidation for if they're going to be going on to Amazon, or maybe if they're already there, they're like, well, I can't compete with with the Johnson and Johnsons of the world. I can't compete with these huge. And it's like, well, but even something as base as like you were saying, making sure your images are optimized.
Mhm.
Now, really, I was going to say, it's optimized. You can still be on the same playing field. Now, because I do want to get on to other subjects in this, obviously, but with the images, were you just making sure that was it the same images, but they were just that 3,000 by 3,000, or we're just like, no, we need new
In
imagery, and what was that?
in the case of that particular customer, it was the same images because their images were good. They were
Okay.
just poor resolution before.
Okay.
Um, but there are obviously things you want to look out for, that, you know, make an image better for a listing, kind of fundamental things like you want to highlight key product features, you want to have lifestyle images with people making a connection with your audience, and
For sure.
product comparisons, things like that.
Yeah, that's something it's so underutilized, I think. I mean, obviously you know it, and I know it, and I'm sure some of the people who are listening or watching this know it. But if you have a product, if you have a purse, if you have a car wipe, if you have a weight set, weight gloves, any, the individual, images showing the quality of the product is fantastic, but showing it in some sort of real world action ish settings can go to, if are you are what generation are you targeting? Are you targeting people who have children? Are you targeting, you can express that
Mhm.
in those images. So no, it's all great stuff. And I know we could do a whole podcast just on imagery, but since
Yeah.
some people may just be listening to this, let's go on to actually, you were getting into product descriptions and things like that, even with the images. So can you I'll stop talking, but I'm gonna let you kind of dive
Yeah,
into,
sure.
because images is one part, and let's go into descriptions and bullets and features and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Really quick. So when it comes to bullets, bullets are, after title, which should probably be in there too. Title is like after images, I would say title is the most important thing. And you want to try to go for a 200 character, or if you want to get real technical, 200 byte minimum count for your characters in there. Longer titles, basically, when it comes to how Amazon looks at what you're indexing for, the title is weighted very heavily. And also, the further you go along in your title, the less weighted it is. So a really high value term should go in the beginning, right? High relevancy terms, high value terms, they go towards the beginning of the title. And, I'd say everything in the title should be high value, but the less valuable ones are, go later in it.
And then what would we consider, we can use an example, this same example or a different example, because I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we can get in the weeds, again. So you're saying high value as opposed to, would that, I'm sure for some that might be the actual brand. It could be, so what would we consider a high or a low brand?
Brand, I'd say, is almost always should be your first one. Especially, actually, no, yeah, as a general rule, your brand should come first.
Okay.
In the end, like once you start to do PPC campaigns, etc., your brand term is going to become your most valuable asset. That's what you're doing on Amazon, is building a brand.
For sure.
So definitely brand first.
Okay.
And then after that, it would be based on the market research that you do. So it could change depending on your strategy, right? If you don't have as much money to throw at PPC, maybe you try to get a long tail phrase in there, so that you can, isolate a part of the market and, sort of get your foot in the door to start getting some sales, getting some traction. Or maybe you're willing to spend on ads and you want to just go aggressive and pick the highest search value, like volume term possible. Then in that case, that would be your high value term, right? So car wipes, right? Incredibly generic. You would put that first. You want to rank for it.
Yeah.
And so on. So it does depend on what you're doing, but as long as you know what you're going for, you can make an informed decision as to what to put there.
Got it.
Or just hire professionals to do it for you.
No, plug. Just saying. Okay, cool. We got images, we got titles, because thank you for jumping in there with that, because we obviously don't have a title, you got nothing. So bullets and descriptions. I guess you want to hit that next.
Yep. So next up is bullets. Bullets, the second is the next most important thing after title. So bullets, you want to be cohesive. You want to make sense in your bullets. And when it comes to what people are actually going to read, just keep in mind that it's usually going to just be the very first part of it. And that's why it's recommended that you always do capitalize on the beginning of your bullet. So basically what I typically will do is, again, going to go back to these high value terms, take a high value term or phrase that is highlighting a key product feature, capitalize it, and then put a dash and fill that with more SEO. But you don't want to do what they call SEO packing. And that's where the tip of don't make it not cohesive comes in. When it comes to copy, even though most people aren't going to read it, you do want it to still make sense.
Needs to be cohesive in some way, shape, or form. So
right. Don't write your SEO in there at the expense of having a grammatically correct sentence. Put it that way.
For sure. And real quick, you just hit the because I know again, there's some people will confuse description and bullets. So when we say bullet, what are we referencing?
We're talking about key product features. And when you go on a product page, there's a list of usually between 1 and 6 key product features that can be added to a page.
Okay.
And so it's the first thing people, as you're scrolling down after title, it's the next thing you see is key product features.
Okay.
And then after that would be description. Description's actually kind of hard to see on Amazon, believe it or not. And that's by design, I think. It's because they want you to brand register and they want you to have A+ content, which if you have it will completely replace the description.
Got it. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's which we're going to get into a whole discussion on that one. We'll, in fact, again, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a two-parter because we have a whole thing on FBA we want to hit. So, okay, so we've gone over images, we've gone over. So, if you can, because a lot of this whole title list is Amazon product listings basics to not overlook. So everything we're talking about here, and you've probably audited hundreds of accounts at this point, maybe thousands of accounts at this point, or at least product listings at this point. So are these?
Absolutely.
So when it comes to, let's just go with bullets so we don't go through everything. What are some of the most, common like no-nos? People think that they're putting a feature, but they're putting free shipping. And it's like, that's not a product feature.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those things that people think they're doing right, but they're not so much?
Yeah, I would strongly encourage people to read the guidelines. Things like that actually are.
But reading is hard, Dave. That's why we have
yeah. Yeah, things like that are actually could get your listing suppressed. You don't, just like with your images, you don't want to make direct comparisons to a competitor. You can't call out your competitor by name, things like that.
Can't say you better than Armor All. You can't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, you also can't say things like, 50% off in a bullet point. You could say, we offer 50% more car wipes in our package than competitors or something like that. Like if you can get a little creative with your wording if you want to. Although honestly, I don't, unless that it really is a product highlight, I would say don't go for that in your bullets.
For sure. So if it was like car, I'm just throwing this because I'm one of those, like if I'm going to wash my car, I will look for you don't see this all the time, but if it's a general wipe, it may be like good on leather and plastic or something. But then you may have good on leather, plastic, wood, like all those surfaces that it works on. Those would be kind of more things you want to stick to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure what you are highlighting is an actual feature. And it's important not to mislead people. Make sure what you're saying is true, because 1%, we can get in a whole topic on this, but 1% of something like 1% of people who buy your product will leave a review, and people are more likely to leave negative reviews than positive ones. So you really do have to have, if you're going to market, you have to have a good product, or else that 1% of reviewers that you get will tend to be negative ones.
Which gets into the whole, A9 algorithm. If you're getting bad reviews more frequently, all that stuff will just drag you down. So just don't set yourself up to be smacked. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, let's do this. I want to dive a little bit deeper, if that's okay. You still got a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Cool. Yep. So we're gonna go. We kind of hit. I'm just calling those the basics. I know there's more that goes into it, but let's kind of go a little bit deeper, because this is where I started getting even more interested, because I'm a marketing nerd. So we're gonna go beyond the basics. So, once you're in your listing, if you're trying to, optimize it, let's just start, because we mentioned SEO. So obviously, if we're talking SEO, keywords is going to come in there. So let's go with that. What people should be looking for, or doing, not doing. I think you referenced what I would call keyword stuffing.
Yes, that's the term. Yeah.
So let's go into that. Let's go on the back end. You're in trying to optimize the back end keywords. What mistakes do you see? What do you want to do?
One of the most common mistakes I see in back end keywords is the use of commas. People go in and maybe they just feel like that's what you're supposed to do. They put a comma between each word or each phrase, separating them out. So that is probably the biggest no-no when it comes to back-end keywords. So back-end keywords, they sort of permutate together. Okay. So if you don't have commas, think of it as unlocking the potential for more combinations of those words together, right? Like when you separate it out by a comma, what you're essentially doing is telling the back end, hey, only ever consider this by itself, right? Don't consider mixing it with other words that I may be putting in my back end. And that's just a huge no-no, because you want to index for as much as possible.
Can you give a quick, like maybe I'm wrong here, but that example where I said, works on plastic, leather, if someone wrote that, like if I did it, because I'm thinking grammatically, so I would be writing that, works on leather, comma, plastic surfaces, comma, that's how I would write it grammatically. So you're saying I wouldn't want to do that?
Just as long as you don't put any commas in. Never put commas in, because you want every word to be able to potentially combine with another word that you've put in there.
I understand. Okay. So don't try to separate it with like, what do they call those? The lines you can do on a Mac, it's command, whatever that thing is. So
yeah,
don't do that. Just leave it all
together. You don't want to separate them out. And then the other thing is you want to write them in an order that somewhat makes sense. So it's not going to be perfect, but let's say car wipes is in your backend search terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't put car and then a bunch of other like less related things. Like you wouldn't put like say surface is another word in your backend, right? You wouldn't put car surface and then like 100 words later put wipes.
Sure.
When you're looking at when you're basically pulling all of that SEO data, you're going to see phrases, right? Everything is part of a phrase at some point. So whatever your phrases are, try to maintain them as much as you can. Like you're not putting phrases in with commas, but make it make sense, make it cohesive a little bit. And
don't try to get,
that is definitely, those are the two number one things for backend. There are some other more nuanced things as well, but I would say for fundamentals, it's pretty much that. And also don't be afraid to, if your listing is brand new or just has low indexed words, don't be afraid to repeat things that are in your copy. It's generally speaking, people will tell you not to do that, but I'm telling you, before you start ranking and you get traction, do not be afraid to do it. SEO backend, it comes in phases. Phase one, you want to start ranking for all those really, really important terms, at least a little bit.
Sure.
And
you're trying to spread the wealth, get some search attention.
Yep. Eventually you will audit them out, and that's why you need continued SEO. It is not like a one and done thing.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, anything else on the because I know we've already talked about we've talked about a lot of subjects, and I think what we'll do is we'll because I do want to really get into FBA and FBM, because that's just stuff is just ridiculous. It's more interesting than people think, and there's so many more benefits than people realize. So I do want to get into that, but I think what we're going to do is I think this is enough for this. I think people have enough to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make this a two-parter. So stay tuned for part 2. But Dave, I need to start with this. If you do want to email myself here at National Positions, you can do that at matt.erickson@nationalpositions.com. And Dave, if someone had a question about anything you said, they want to get a hold of you, what email here at NP could they reach you at?
Yeah, I can be reached at dave.casarino@nationalpositions.com, and that's CASSARINO for my last name.
Okay, cool. We'll make sure we throw those up on the video too, so people can see that. So, well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Digital Breakthroughs podcast. And again, this is Amazon product listings you never want to overlook. So stay tuned for part 2. Thank you so much, Dave. We'll see you in part 2.
Awesome. See you there.